Okay, James, well, welcome to St Matthew's and welcome to all of you to St Matthew's. Um, the first thing anybody notices when they see you is you've got a lot of tattoos. A lot of tattoos. Have you got a favourite tattoo or one that you prefer?
Well, I wish I didn't have one tattoo now, but probably when I first became a Christian, the scripture that Ben just mentioned about, Jesus being the light, and those who know him will not walk in darkness. That's one. And I put one, probably the deepest one was on my neck, and it says, "Who am I?" Because there was a time in life I didn't know who I was, didn't know what my purpose was, didn't know what I was doing here on the earth, just randomly, going from place to place. So that's probably the most profound, deepest one, just asking the question of who I was.
So, who am I? I guess that's a question that many people have asked over the years, and not just you. So tell us, what was your life like growing up? Perhaps your school years. Tell us a bit about those.
So I struggled to concentrate really in school because growing up, my mum used to work a lot, so it was just my mum. Dad weren't around, so I'd spend a lot of time at family friends, childminders. So every day I wouldn't really know where I was. Wasn't much stability, even though that couldn't be helped. But because of that, I think I was just a bit all over the place, and that kind of came into a lot of areas, my thinking, and school as well. Struggled to settle, struggled to listen to instruction, and school didn't really work for me, if I'm honest with you. Struggled with authority, just school's a battle, really. Going into secondary school, I started hanging around with young people who had a similar story to myself. No fathers in the home, etc. From a kind of impoverished neighborhood. So, we wanted to be popular. So I just wanted to fit in, really. So you look at the popular people, and they were the ones who were getting in trouble where I was from. So then I wanted to hang around with them and kind of prove myself. So if they would do something, stupid, like kick someone's door, I have to go and kick it harder, because I just wanted to be the one who, to fit in. So I would just do stupid things just to kind of, fit in, really. Because coming from London, I was born in London, and I had a London accent, and everyone laughed at me when I came to Wolverhampton.
Can I just say a London accent is a good thing? Because my family come from London as well, yes.
I know that now. Now I've got this black country accent, I realise that. But at the time, I just wanted to fit in, so it wasn't long before, I had the black country accent going on. So, but teenage years, going through secondary school, falling behind in work, more in school, and I kind of just gave up in the end. And got to about 14, started smoking cannabis, and that just made me no motivation. What comes up must come down. So in the moment you're doing it, everything seems amazing, but the next day you're snappy and angry, and that took it, a bit its toll on the relationship with my mom. And predominantly we started off, the young people I was hanging around with, we was just doing petty things like throwing stones at cars or knocking doors and running off, and we was doing that for kind of like adrenaline, but it just it snowballed and got worse and worse, and then we started stealing cars. So I think my last year of school, we were stealing cars for no real purpose. We just driving around the area for the thrill, I think, so. I think my last year of school, I just made it all the way to year 11, despite getting in little bits of trouble on the way there. And one day, I think I had a little bit of an argument with another pupil, and I think all my frustrations in life just kind of it all boiled over, and I assaulted this pupil, and it was just the last straw for school, really. So I got permanently excluded. But at the time, being permanently excluded, I thought it was a good thing, because I didn't have to wake up for school anymore. Could come and go as I pleased, as my mum was at work all day. So I had free roam of the house, and I didn't realise the impact it was going to have on my life because everything was taken care of by my mum at that moment. And I started hanging around with my friends I was hanging around with. They were all kicked out of school as well. So we were just having a negative influence on each other. And within a couple of months of being kicked out of school, I was in a young offenders institute in prison.
Well, I mean, you've obviously had, childhood wasn't great, and mixing with a difficult group, perhaps trying to be the best. So that's kind of like your school days, and I know one of your former school teachers is here tonight. We'll talk about that a bit later, perhaps. But what was life like then when you left school and you became a young adult? Tell us about your years as a young adult.
I didn't really choose to get into crime and stuff. It wasn't something that I made a plan for. I made a few mistakes and ended up in prison, as I said, young offenders. Having spent about 4 months inside, when I came out, the community I'm from, you'd be celebrated for that. So instead of people, kind of telling you, you need to make better choices in your life, and, people were celebrating me, and it felt good as a young person to be noticed. So I kind of just carried that on, and I thought, well, this is who I am, this is my identity. So then, obviously, being kicked out of school, criminal record, it was difficult to have a good job. So I tried to work. I had a job in a factory. I worked there for a week. And I got an allergic reaction to some of the chemicals they were using in the metal. So I ended up in hospital, and I ended up quitting the job. And I started to sell cannabis. And I was about 17, and I started to do quite well, in street terms, financially for my age, and enjoyed a lot of jealousy. A lot of people in my area, saw I was doing successful. They weren't, doing too well themselves, so that bred a lot of jealousy. And out of that, I ended up buying a firearm to protect myself, which was a stupid, thing to do. But having bought that, it just changed me as a person because I felt powerful, and just got involved in a gang.
We've got a picture. Is this a picture of your gang? Who's this?
Yeah, so this is the area I'm from. All these young people, we were representing this gang. Well, some of them, and like I said, we all had similar stories. Birds of a feather flock together, they say. So, we had similar stories that joined us together in this kind of brotherhood community, as you'd call it. There wasn't much to do in my area as way of youth clubs or anything like that. So growing up, we just made our own community. And it was the blind leading the blind. So, this is with the people that I'd risk my life for, and my freedom, and so growing up with them, it just, we just inspired each other because there were so many of us. We just felt untouchable. So people would go out and seek problems because they knew they had, the backing of everybody else. So then your problems, instead of having my own problems, now I've got 20, 30 people's problems. So when you're called upon, you've got to go out and do what you got to do. And so this lifestyle just brought nothing but misery, really. I was stabbed when I was 18. I just became a dad as well. I was a young father. I didn't have a clue. I had a young girl. I didn't have life figured out at all. So to try and raise a young girl, in this context as well that I was in, it wasn't, it didn't go too well. So I got stabbed, had a punctured lung, internal bleeding, over an argument over £50 in the street. Family coming up to the hospital to plead with me to change my life. My little girl coming up with her mum and seeing my family cry. But I had a moment to think. I was in hospital for a few weeks, but I had my friends also telling me about, revenge and stuff like this. But I just didn't know how to get out. I didn't know what else was there for me other than this. I just accepted it. I just accepted the life and what came along with it.
So kind of trapped in a circle, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, they call it the trap. If you just young people, the music they listen to, it's called the trap. They know what they're in, and they'll sing about it and dance to it in songs. But it is a trap. You're stuck because there's so many different elements that keep you stuck in there, And the fact that you're around other people who think like this, you think that this is how people think. Because, you know, it's like coming to church. Now I think a certain way, and the rest of my community around me, we think similar. So sometimes outside of that, you know, it's like sometimes a bit alien, and it was the same in that sense. We thought that people who worked were just slaves to the system, and they go all day to work and get shouted at, told what to do by their boss, and too tired to do anything when they get home, and hardly make any money. And we just see those people as odd. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah. So obviously you that was quite tough, and then you got a bit older, you got into drugs dealing, is that right? And firearm offence and things like that. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I bought it as protection from people from my own community, for people from my own area. When I was making money, the older, you know, people in my area, they would try and target me because I was a young person. I was very skinny, you know, I wasn't a threat to anyone, and so I felt in my own mind I had to buy it for protection. So as I did that, I started to get a reputation, and same as when I came out of prison the first time, I was kind of just, you know, it just really, like, when people are kind of talking about you and you get this respect, it became a bit like a drug. So, you know, getting a firearm and seeing people scared of me and talk to me in a certain way and respecting me, it just fueled it more and more. So, going along with that, then me and my daughter's mum, our relationship was terrible because I, you know, completely gave my life to the streets. I was a slave to my phone, couldn't go anywhere. The phone would ring, I'd be off there and here, and so nothing works in that. While you're in that lifestyle, you sacrifice everything. Sacrifice being a dad, you know, being a partner to my daughter's mum, and I ended up living in my friend's house, sleeping on his settee, in his flat, kind of sofa surfing. And yeah, sometimes even though you're in a gang, you're the most loneliest person, even though you're surrounded by all these people. But the thing is, in that, it's like you can't be yourself. So how you're feeling, you know, we just taught to just keep it in. Do you know what I mean? And we don't tell people, you know, how we truly feel, and we all just part of this one, you know, mindset of, you know, we get our influence from rap culture, music, and, you know, we're scared to really say who we are. So you kind of keep all that stuff in. And I was involved in a car crash when I was 20 years old. My friend who I was living with at the time, sleeping on his settee, he died in a car crash. I was arrested from the hospital for firearms offences. Back in prison again at 20. I then received a 7-year prison sentence. My daughter was 2 at the time, so she was, you know, she had to come and visit me. And the thing about visits in prison is it's the most amazing thing, but it's the most painful thing, because when they walk in, it's amazing, you know, to see my daughter, and then to watch her leave is, you know, painful. So it's like a double-edged, you know, sword. So I spent 3.5 years in prison. You have to do half your sentence. You do the rest of your time on license outside under strict conditions. While I was in prison, you know, it was just survival mode every day. You just surviving till the next day. And I had no plan. I didn't think, what am I going to do when I get out? I just couldn't wait for the door to open. I was going to be free. But beyond the door opening, I didn't have a plan. Because, like I said, I settled for that life. I knew that life. I knew, you know, even though the friendships, there was no loyalty, but you just accept rubbish friendships. You just accept, you know, you don't believe you're worth anything. So my time came, got released, straight back into the area, you know, that I was from, around the same people, same mindsets. And, you know, obviously you're going to get the same ingredients. So I just carried on the same, started to sell harder drugs by this point. I then become a dad for a second time, meet my now wife, and that relationship's going terrible as well, because, like I said, same ingredients, you get the same results. So things are not good at home. I've got no peace in the home, arguing and conflict there. then I'd be out, on the streets, and I'm looking in my rear view, looking out for police, and police would raid my house. So even when I'm asleep, I'm kind of expecting a knock on the door, and in my area, friends are jealous, and you got to carry weapons because of people from the other side of town, and there's just no peace in it. So even though you're making money, it just seems like a curse. Just, there's, because of what you're doing, it's impacting on you, but you don't see it because you feel like it's normal, because you've been doing it for so long. You don't realize that there's another way to feel. You just feel like this is just how it is. I've been doing it for so long. So when I was, selling drugs, I would buy expensive clothes, trying to, that would give me a little bit of a boost. I'd feel a bit good about myself for 20 minutes, and that'd wear off, and then I'd, buy a new car and a faster car, and after driving that around for a day, that'd wear off, and I'd, go out drinking, and, I forget about my problems, but then I'd crash land with a hangover, and, and then go out partying with my friends and take drugs and women, and just, there was always temporary, but just big lows, really. So I was just trying to find anything just for some peace in that world.
So, you're painting a very vivid picture. Pretty rotten life and things not great. But then I know when you hit 33, things changed a bit. Yeah. Tell us what happened then.
Yeah, so I got to 33, and then obviously I'd been living this life since 15, 16. It was the only thing I knew. And I just was, like I said, I was drinking heavily and taking drugs and stuff like that. So I remember just becoming lost. And one day my now wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but she took a video of me while I was high. And she showed me the video when I was sober, and I remember just looking at it in complete shock and just, disgusted by what I saw. So I decided I was going to stop taking drugs and drinking. And I knew that I needed to do something else. I needed to fill the gap with something else. So I started to box. One of my friends was a professional boxer, so I went to the gym with him. And I lived a life like I was actually a boxer. I trained every single day without fail. I'd eat healthy, my diet, training, and it was just giving me something to keep me afloat, just to, from slipping back into, what I was into before. And through this period, it was months. I was training for months, and I was thinking clearly. I was, in good physical condition, and it was just giving me discipline in my life, because I never had any discipline from when I was young, because I wasn't taught discipline. It was always from place to place, and no set place and home I was in. So the boxing started to teach me a real discipline that I didn't have at all in my life. And after a while training, I started to get a bit discouraged, because I'm 33, I'm not going to become the next Anthony Joshua. So I got a bit discouraged, and I missed the odd session, and my friend could see, because I thought, well, where's this going? Do you know what I mean? So my friend could see, that I was falling off the pace. So he organised for me to have an amateur boxing match. This was an event where anyone who didn't have any previous skills of boxing could just sign up for this, amateur boxing, and have a once in a lifetime, opportunity to have a boxing match. And they put on this big event, and shirt tie event, and you sell your tickets to your family members and friends. So I signed up for this. I went, you don't want to look weak, so then all these thoughts are going through my head, so if this guy knocks me out or whatever else, because you're very vulnerable, do you know what I mean? So, because anyone can win a boxing match, so all these thoughts are going through my mind, and I was terrified, but I was very good at not showing my emotion. I could learn to keep it locked away, because of the life I lived. It was, we was all faking it, and no one really knew how we felt, so it was easy to just put it away, but I was shaking on the inside. But anyway, my fight comes. There's a few fights beforehand. Then the ref, calls us both into the ring, and the bell rings, and within 40 seconds, my leg gave way. It turned out that I tore all my ligaments. I needed an operation in the end, but yeah, as far as I'm concerned, my leg just gave way.
Pretty short boxing career then, 40 seconds.
The shortest boxing career, I think, on record. But yeah, it was. I was kind of glad because I was doing quite well for those 40 seconds. So, you know, I was, you know, I didn't get knocked out, so my worst nightmare didn't come true. But yeah, so yeah, the fight finished. I went to get dressed, and after I was dressed, I went to take my seat to watch the rest of the fights. And a guy came over to me and just kind of stopped me in my tracks. And he said, "I need to talk to you." So I was taken back. He was a middle-aged white guy with a beard. So I thought, mate, he's the police. That was my first, you know, kind of conclusion was to the, yeah. So I kind of looked at him a bit puzzled, you know, what do you want to talk to me about? And he was like, he kind of put me at ease and said, you know, it's all right, I just want to tell you my story. So, you know, I was, so I kind of, you know, sat there and he started to explain how he found Jesus. So as we're talking, I remember looking around and there's people laughing by the bar, there's boxing match going on over here, and I'm talking to a guy in the middle about Jesus. But as we're talking, I've always searched, I've always wanted something more in my life. And I've been to Roman Catholic schools, so I've been exposed to faith, but at that time, I wasn't ready for it. I just thought Jesus was a nice man who, you know, was killed and he did some nice things. And mate, was he even real? I don't know. Is it just a book? I don't know. So as we're having this convo, I'm asking him all these questions I've had stored up over the years. You know, how do you know that, you know, your way is the right way? And, you know, all these other people say, I said, you know, I need proof. That's kind of my thing. So he said a few things to me, but then at the end of the conversation, he said, well, the thing is, when I saw you tonight, I knew that God wanted me to speak to you. And that's when the alarm bell started going. I thought he was a bit of a madman. But yeah, he said, God's raising an army. I see that you've got a lot of influence, but you're using it in the wrong place. And I thought, oh, well, that's easy to say. I've got tattoos. You can see my friends, you know, they're a bit, you know, you can tell they look a bit moody. You know, you could easily make that assumption. But as he's talking, I'm listening. I want to hear what he's got to say. So anyway, after he tells me that God's calling me, he said to me, you know, can we carry on this conversation? And we'll exchange details on Facebook. So I said, yeah, of course. So he gives me his name on Facebook. And yeah, the evening ends. I go back home. And I wake up the next day, and he's the first thing in my thoughts. It's not every day, you know, that someone's coming up to you telling you that God's called you. So I just start messaging straight away. I mean, him go backwards and forwards. I'm asking him loads of questions, and he's doing the best to give me answers. But what starts to happen was I started to feel really guilty about selling drugs, because previously I would say to myself that I was just providing a service. The same as an off-license will sell alcohol, and whatever the people who buy it do is, you know, it's up to them. I'm not forcing it on anybody. It's just a service. But that had been my thing that would keep me ignorant over the years. But at this time, I was actually faced with what I was doing. I looked at my community. I saw that there were moms who were taking drugs and not taking their kids to school, or dads who had spent the money, and moms who were snappy and angry because they were on come-downs after taking the drugs. And I just see the real, you know, impact that it was having. And I couldn't escape it. And it's every day I couldn't shake it off. I was trying to shake it off, and I thought, what's this man done to me? You know what I mean? Since I spoke to this guy, you know, I'm having all these this attack of conscience. But anyway, I carried on because it's the only thing I knew. So I didn't know what else there was, you know, for me to who I was. And like I said, that tattoo on my neck, the who am I, you know, was the biggest obstacle. So I thought, why not? Do you know what I mean? Because for me, if there is no God, then what is even morality? But, you know, because it's in these just laws that the government make, and they even break their own laws. So for me, it was, nothing mattered. Everything's just random. So when I started to, think of the notion of, right and wrong and stuff like that, I really started to be attacked by my conscience. And everywhere I was going, I started to see things of God, just signs. I'd switch on the TV, there was something of God, and be driving down the street, there'd be a number plate with something, spiritual. There's always just things about God everywhere. And I thought, maybe I'm just looking for this stuff myself. But one of my friends was with me, and he said, every time I'm with you lately, I keep seeing things about God. So then I realized, you know what, this isn't just me then. And anyway, as the weeks went by, this guy on Facebook kept inviting me to come to church. And I was like, I'm not ready for that. I was still selling drugs. I thought I would probably burn up or something if I walked into the building. But he kept, he was persistent. And one day, I hadn't been getting much sleep. And I'd gone and saw one of my friends for a spliff. And I didn't even smoke at this time, but I just wanted some sleep. So I went and saw my friend. He gave me this spliff. I remember smoking a little bit of it, and I threw it away. And while I was sat down watching TV, it felt like something came and pulled me out of my body, and I have this out-of-body experience, and I was at this light, and all I could feel from this was just pure love, the purest form of love. I couldn't even put it into words. And it was speaking to me, but not with words. It was just like I knew, and it was talking about the Holy Spirit and the man that I met. And it told me to watch a movie, which is weird, but it was a movie that I've watched many, many times. I'll speak a little bit quickly about the movie. I went on to watch the movie, and it was all about a saviour, somebody who came to, save the earth. And there was biblical references all through it, Zion, and Trinity was his girlfriend, and I'd watched this film over and over. I never saw the message, but after I watched it, after I experienced this, out-of-body experience, I saw it. So then, I was high, no doubt, and I still question it to this day. But after I'd had this experience, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, and I sat there and I was just puzzled, like, what on earth's going on? Obviously I've smoked cannabis, so, there's things can maybe happen. But I'm like, all these different sequences of things that have happened up until now. This madman that I've met who, told me that God was calling me. I've been feeling guilty about a life I've lived, and I've lived this life for 17, 18 years. My friend even a witness to all these signs about God and stuff. And now this, out-of-body experience. So then I remember just sitting there and saying to myself, I prayed a prayer to God, and I didn't know what I was praying, but I just said, if this is not all coincidence and, me being high currently, then I want a sign. And I asked for a particular sign, and I said, it's nearly 1 o'clock on 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I said, if this guy who shared the gospel with me at the boxing, if he messages me right now on Facebook, I'll believe it. So I look at my phone, and the message comes through straight away. It's 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, and I drop my phone on the floor. All the hairs on my neck are standing up, and I'm just saying to myself over and over and over, how did he know? How did he know? How did he know to message me? 1 o'clock in the morning. He's meant to be a Christian, for one. What's he doing up at this time? And I'm just thinking, how did he know? So then I finally get the courage to look at the message. And as you can see, the message, he even answers what I'm saying out. So blessings to you, time for a coffee. I just know. Even he say full stop, I just know. It's got nothing to do with the sentence. He's answered what I'm saying. How did he know? And he even writes, I just know. So I'm terrified at this point, absolutely terrified, shaking. I get no sleep that night, no sleep whatsoever. and I'm just pondering over all my life, all my decisions, where I'm at. And I remember making a decision and saying, I'm finished with this life, and I want to know about this calling. What this man told me God was calling me, I want to know what that is. So I make a decision. I go and tell all my friends the next day, no longer selling drugs that were poisoning people. They all said I'd gone mad. But when we was all taking drugs together, no one ever questioned our sanity. So I realised everything was upside down, and went to church. And the same community that I was looking for before, I found it, and I found it on another level. The people supported me, they didn't judge me, and they just helped me, grow into this new life as a born-again Christian.
So we've got a picture of your baptism up on the screen now. So obviously, significant situation. You've gone from darkness to light, and that's part of the imagery we see in baptism. So that was some time ago now. What difference would you say having Jesus in your life has made to you?
There's so many. It's a complete difference. I'm not saying everything's perfect when you become a Christian, and there's not hard times, but it's a reason to keep getting up. It's a reason not to drink. It's a reason not to take drugs. I've got a real path. I've got a path. I know where I'm going. Whereas before I had no clue. I really was in darkness. Didn't know what to do. I looked for answers in all kinds of things that made my life 10 times worse. Now I'm a dad to my children. I'm a husband to my wife. My son, my mom doesn't have to worry every time she hears police sirens. And yeah, just I couldn't even. There's so much I couldn't.
Life sounds better.
Yeah, a lot better.
So, as we kind of coming towards the end of this, you're employed as a community youth worker. How come you're employed at Blue Coat Academy? Tell us about that.
Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into the mentoring, because even that was a touch from God as well. But how I got into Blue Coats particularly was because when I was in school, my secondary school, I had a form teacher, and he always took his time to sit down and speak to me about, my behaviour, and he was just very genuine, always there. He was firm but fair. When he shouted, even the roughest of us would just, he commanded respect, but he was firm but fair. So he would always try and speak to me. He was always trying to help, and just genuine, very genuine, and I could see he cared. But unfortunately, it went wrong. I got kicked out of school in the last year. I didn't even get a chance to say thank you or anything. I was just bundled out of the school and I was off. And then I went on this, this horrible journey. But then when I'd transitioned from that world and got into a career of working with young people, I remembered him, and I just wanted to get in contact with him just to tell him that I finally, can see the light, and, I wanted to thank him really. A mutual friend still had contact with him, so I gave him a call. He told me he was now the principal at Blue Coats. He invited me for a little chat, so I went over, and I was even scared at that. I was speaking to him, I couldn't even get my words out. It was just, I was overwhelmed. And after doing some work there, he offered me a full-time position at Blue Coats, working with the young people, because I think he saw the vision the same. I understood the mindset and how it was to struggle in school. So be able to build that bridge and connect with the young people who were, making some of the poor decisions that I was making. But just to quickly touch on how I got into that work in the first place, when I got out of that lifestyle, I had no clue what I was going to do with my life, because even if you're a Christian, you can't turn up to Sainsbury's with your Bible, and, the gas and electric companies don't care, if you're a Christian, they're still coming with the bills. So I thought, what am I going to do? And to be honest, I would have done anything. I would have swept the streets, anything. I was just happy to be free. and I had no qualifications, nothing on my CV, hardly. Tattoos on my face, criminal record. I didn't put myself in a good position for a job. So I thought, what's my skills? I thought, well, I've been dealing with customer services for 18 years, so maybe, that could, maybe that kind of route. So I started applying for jobs. One at a rental car place. And I remember going for this interview, and I was sitting in the waiting room with all the other prospects. And this guy came out with his clipboard, says, looking down at his clipboard, so he weren't looking up, and he says, "Oh, is James Gwilt here?" So I said, yeah, I'm here. And he looked up from his board and even stepped back as if to say, wow. And I realised that I ain't going to get this job. So, but that was the pattern again. And one day, we went to a friend's house in Stoke because he'd done some missionary work with a guy from Uganda. And he was coming from Uganda to share his story of some stuff in the village that had been happening. So we went along to that. We had this night of listening to his stories and stuff. And at the end of the night, he said, can I pray for everybody? So we all agreed. We sat around in a circle. And as he started to pray for everybody individually, he's saying stuff to people. I'm not too sure what he was saying to everyone. But he got to me and he said, you're going to show the young people the light. I didn't have a clue what he meant. But from then, I think he kind of planted a seed. So then I thought, well, maybe I can work with young people. But then, I've got doubts. Like, people won't even trust me with cars. Who's going to trust me, with a young person? But nonetheless, I inquired how I would get into working with young people. So there was a company in Wolverhampton that I was put onto by my old probation officer. And they worked with young people in gangs. So I got in touch with them, and they said, "Oh, you've come at the perfect time." We was waiting for someone who, had lived experience. So they offered me a position there. I also got a job working in a children's home. And I was told by someone, there's no way they're going to give you a job in a children's home, with all that's working against you. And both the jobs I had, I worked both of them at the same time, and both all working with children. And growing up, my mum used to tell me, you'd be good at working with children. And I thought, I don't even look after my own children. So am I going to, I don't know what you see in me there. But yeah, that's how I got into that line of work. So even that, when I look back, it was, yeah.
God's working in an amazing way.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have a break in a moment. But just before we have a break, let's just go back to that text. Gordon. Is he the weirdo who...
Yeah, that's the weirdo who shared the gospel with me at the boxing. He's right there at the front. Yeah.
So we see a journey there with Gordon and Mr. Smith involved. Luco, it's great. A real journey from darkness to light. So thank you very much for sharing us with that. Should we give James a round of applause?